I'm sorry, I couldn't stop that, you know. I didn't want to fade it out. It just didn't seem right. Uh, so my guests, that you were listening to Ken Filiano's recording called Clown Car, and that was with well, I think I will cut and paste this, but Ken and on bass, Michael Atias.
He is, yes.
On alto and baritone, Tony Malaby on soprano and tenor, and Michael T.A. Thompson on drums. Yeah, really, I'm going to cut and paste that into. There we go. Um, yeah,
Hey,
I
uh,
so glad you guys came on.
thanks for inviting us. Glad to be here. We've been enjoying seeing the series.
Now, me too. I've really been enjoying it too. I feel lucky to like, you know, have all these people to talk to. It's just so much fun to get to know people again. And, you know, like for instance, us, we would consider ourselves friends, but we've never talked for 2 hours at a time, right?
Maybe not. Well, you and I had a nice phone conversation. Maybe an hour. I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and Ken, I mean, it's been years and years since we.
Yeah.
But I remember when you and I met. I think this is when we met. It was at I think it was when they still had the Jazz Times convention, or maybe it was the IAJE. I don't know, in New York, and you know it was in the day. It probably 20-ish years ago. Ken and I were playing together, but we weren't together personally. And I had those, you know, postcards for my gigs, right, that had all my gigs on them. And I remember giving you, we met, I think, and I gave you a postcard, and you said, oh, Ken Filiano, I used to know him in LA. And that would happen all the time, because, you know, I'd have these cards, they'd have who I was playing with on all my different gigs, and somebody would look at my card and say, oh, Ken Filiano, I knew him in Boston, or Ken Filiano. Like, what is it with this guy?
And then you found out, right? And you said, "Oh, Ken Filiano."
About our meeting, I can picture standing there in the, it was, you know, at those conventions, the room where they have all the booths and everything. I can picture it. Yeah.
You weren't like back then. I think it was actually in LA, but we created the Vocal Coalition or whatever it was called. You weren't part of that?
Yeah. Because so Alan made me sort of like an advisor, you know, because I
Oh,
had
okay.
lot of time with IWJ, with International Women in Jazz. I'd been on the board. I had been board president for a while. And so when the Vocal Coalition started, I said, hey, you know, I can share some things I've learned to maybe make your road a little easier. So, and then when you guys did that thing in New York, I performed in one of those. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, you know, the memory is like
That was a long
vague, you know. Yeah, it was a long time ago, and you know, it's just the brain cells, especially now, you know, the brain cells seem to be jumping around in an amusedly fashion. Yeah. So, hey Ken, when did you do this recording that we were just listening to?
That was done in 2008, my memory holds correct. Yeah, 2008. Yes, it's almost 10 years ago.
oh,
Oh, it's more than that mathematically. Yeah.
See what I mean?
Yeah. But I've been like this since I was born.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Yeah, Tony Malaby, I must have known his name from Phil Strange, who I worked with for many years, the piano player from Arizona.
Oh yeah, absolutely, probably. But he's from Tucson originally.
Yeah, yeah.
Joey Sellers, I met Tony through Joey Sellers.
Oh, really?
Yes, Tony used to come when I was living in LA playing in the little big band, Joey's big band, the jazz act. Then he used to come and visit with Billy, with Joey, and then we would do sessions with Joey and Billy and Tad Weed and all kinds of people. So, and then we kind of reconnoitered in New York at the same time.
Right.
Yeah,
Tad Weed. Speaking of Tad Weed, I I don't know if you remember Les DeMerle.
yeah, yeah.
He's going to be on Wednesday.
Oh, wow. Now Tad passed away, did
I
you?
do. I do. I was so sorry to hear that. He was young, wasn't
Yeah,
he?
really young. I don't even think he hit his 60s yet. He was in his mid 50s when he passed.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's really too bad. And who else did you mention? Somebody else in there. But anyway, yeah, those. When did you move to New York?
95.
Okay. Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
It's hard to
Yeah,
believe. It's like an instant, and all of a sudden, like, whoa, what happened? What happened?
yeah. So I can imagine that you two get a lot of requests for interviews together.
The first.
You're kidding.
Oh,
First, no, well, we did that photo thing once. We did it, this woman was photographing, I think, jazz
oh,
musicians
yeah,
in their
jazz
homes
couples.
or couples or something.
Yes, couples.
First,
My
and actually, I don't get interviewed too much.
oh,
Yeah,
I don't either.
So this is a nice surprise.
Oh, I'm impressed and I'm honored.
As are we. That is not,
Um, Before I forget, I do have a question. When I was listening to that, um, that was so great. And um, there's a space, that gets addressed with that kind of music, and it's a big, fat, huge space that's where there are things placed in it, and it becomes really magical and to me clear. I'm sure there are people who, especially who aren't into jazz, who would listen and go, "Oh, what the hell is that?" But to me, it clarifies things, and I have heard a bunch of music like that, but I'm just curious. Um, how well Brad Dutz I hear a lot, and I know that he writes the music, and then there's improv, but then there's a head actually. So that's the same thing with the music on Clown Car, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Actually, it's all the music on Clown Car that are composed. But I mean, how my compositional process and that particular piece was is not was is the process is having freedom, and so no, I think of Navy ships, specifically aircraft carriers, right? But not for war. But an aircraft carrier is a unit that just floats on the water. The planes that fly are the soloists and the various segments that have composed. They're composed in such a way that you can land on it wherever it is, rather than being vertically aligned. And so the stuff is written. The written material is brought in while the people are soloing, so that all of a sudden they can all land at the same point, like an aircraft carrier. So each time, there's like in this piece there were like four sections that then on the IQ, the EYEQ, that they start to bring in those written material. Then the soloist and the ensembles come together to join it. So wherever we are, however far apart we can come into that. And where I learned about this concept for myself, how I was from the older black cats that I played with, like in Syracuse and in Boston, who they would say to me, play anything you want, just remember the melody. And then the melody is like a gold ring. Every time you go around the circle, the top of the form, you just touch the ring. But anything else you can do, so long as we touch the ring at the same time. So that was some old school stuff that I learned, which was I've carried that was one thing I carried with me into this. So this way of having the free playing, you can travel, and then whenever it goes too far afield, when it gets brought back together, even the listener can say, okay, that's the point behind that.
It must take a lot of. I mean, the more you do it, the better you get at it. Is that right? Or
I don't think so, because I think it's like daily life. Some days you're just so on and nothing can go wrong, and then the next day you have a day where everything goes wrong. You just can't fix it. So I think it really is a matter of that human trust that you can be on the road. You can do five, six, seven, eight, 9 gigs at a time, and it'll be different every time. And some days it's effortless, and other sometimes you have to go, "Oy."
This sounds like a silly question to me, but I'm going to ask it anyway. But it must change pretty dramatically, I would imagine, with different players.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. This music was written for this group that was together for a period of time. I was writing for this group and we were doing a lot of gigs, and finally someone said, "Man, just record this stuff." So I said, "Okay, that sounds like a good idea." And yeah, it's this particular form was written for these guys, not the material, but the concept, not the material. And so I grew up.
Hear it in your head, kind of like you can imagine what the group basically
Exactly.
like. Mhm.
Exactly, and when I've taken this music to other places where it's just me and other players, I want to go a couple of days in advance. We just play it, and I don't give them any direction. I just say, let's start to play and see what we make up.
Yeah, but if I may,
Yeah.
it is written. You're
That's
always
what I
making it
said.
sound like it's not written.
No, I said there are these melodies,
Right,
these vamps, these
right.
melodies. So that no, it is written. And so it starts to do, you start to hear something coming in out of the soloist. Then that's what it is, and then that goes into it. And sometimes I write like it'll be like two or 3 pages. I mean, I cut it down to about a page or 2. But it is specifically written. But it's not written to be formalized. It's written to be clarified.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Fascinating. It's wonderful. Really, really great. We'll talk more about that. And Andrea, boy, reading your bio was like, I told her when I first called that I said, boy, your bio reads really well. I mean, not only that, it's great what you've done. I mean, yeah, well, you do a bunch of stuff like I do. You record and perform, and you teach, and you're a curator, and but you and compose, but you're also a writer as well, or you've been a writer, and some martial art. Is that that was pretty funny on your page. You said you have dusty trophies. Trophies. You have trophies for martial art. I'm impressed.
Yeah, but not at the high level, not at the highest level. That what I always like to say is, when I was a brown belt, I did make it to black belt, but when I was a brown belt, I got 3rd place in the sparring competition. 3rd place is pretty good. Well, there were 3 of us in that competition, though, so participation medal.
Oh gosh. So, do you what have you been? Obviously, you're not curating anything particularly right now.
No, just my own life. No, I mean, I actually haven't done as much of that as I would like, but I was for a period of time. I started an experimental music series here in a club in Greenwich Village, and that was cool. It was a weekly series, and I'd have 2 groups every week. But like so many places, the club closed, and at that point, I didn't look for another place because they closed. I was about to go on the road. Like, I get this email, I'm leaving, I think that day or the next day to go on the road. We're closing in a month. Okay. So anyway, but it was cool. It was really cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm curious as a singer. Did you start out with just the normal singing thing, like doing rock and pop and jazz and
I started I'll try to give you the Cliff Notes version. I mean, I was one of these, kids who sang. I sang with I'm looking at a picture right up here of my mother and me, and we're singing together. You can't see it, but anyway, it's up there. Um, and I did shows. So I started really more in theater, doing shows and things like that. But I always say, when I was in college, some of the guys in the drama department, they had this secret rock star fantasy, and I had this secret jazz singer fantasy, but I really was not pursuing it at all. I wasn't. I was listening. I was just for this class I'm teaching now. I was preparing some stuff, and I was listening to that famous Ella Fitzgerald "How High the Moon" solo, and I said, I listened to that solo. I don't even know how many times for a couple years when I was in college, but I never thought to try to learn it. And I actually did absorb it, but at that time I wasn't pursuing it, so I didn't think, oh, why don't I try to sing this? But so I was more into theater, and then when I started getting into singing jazz, I was singing standards, like many people. But eventually that path, went on a few twists and turns, and it's kind of a little bit of a broader something right now. I still have gigs where it's really straight ahead stuff. There's a big band, straight ahead big band I sing with. I do side person work too. Art Lillard's Heavenly Big Band. I do experimental and avant-garde stuff. I do a lot of stuff in between. So it's just kind of meandered and broadened, I guess. Actually, more, I shouldn't say meandered, but broadened.
Yeah, yeah. I saw your concert, you guys. I was there a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Concert from your apartment or your house or whatever. What are you living in an apartment?
An apartment, yeah.
And that was wonderful. And you had a lot of fans on, and
I think that was on with I forget. We did two within a week, within several days of each other. We had two concerts, so I'm not sure which one it was, but
it was the first one, I think.
the
Arts for Art. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
And that was great.
And a lot of we had
Screenshots.
graphics and screenshots of writing and people talking.
No.
So it might have been the one that Jocelyn does with the open mic afterwards. I don't know. Anyway, thank you for being there. And,
Writing or screenshots particularly. It was the two of you. You
Yeah.
were in your and
we did these two concerts. One was, they were within 4 days or 5 days of each other, and it just happened to be. And it was early June, I guess.
Yeah, June 5th, I think.
It feels like ages ago, but it was early June, and even though we've been playing together now since 1998, which is when we met, we don't do a lot of duo concerts. So it was an interesting process that we both survived, as you can see, because we're here, of figuring out what material would work for us in that setting. And we really spent some time on it, and it was a process. So I'm glad we did, but of course we haven't done any gigs since then. We actually had an in-person gig, a trio gig, this past week in Pennsylvania outdoors, which was
yay.
Yeah, something.
Isn't it? Like when I've played a little bit. It doesn't feel that odd. I mean, it's a little odd. I feel a little rusty or something, But other than feeling a little rusty, it's okay. It's not that terrible, somebody would like to know if your concerts can still be viewed.
Oh, that's a good question. I think that they can, but where are they?
That is the question.
Arts for Art has them as a archive.
Yeah, if anyone goes to artsforart.org, I think that one is archived somewhere. artsforart.org. And then the other one we did was Jocelyn Medina's Sunday series, and they're all archived on her. I guess I could take a sec and poke around here and see if I can find some things.
Great.
I want to play something, and then I can. Does that make sense?
Sure. I will. I brought several things up. Let's see.
Can I suggest something?
Absolutely.
Do you have my SoundCloud there?
Yeah.
Um, the girls in their dresses?
Sure.
Girls and their dresses. Oh, here we go. Okay.
In the summer, the girls in their dresses, and it looks like they're waiting for something. Oh, in the summer, with their cell phones and sandals, and it looks like they're waiting for what? Well, summer days are long, but the nights are longer when you're restless and you don't know where you're headed. Salvation might be waiting just around the corner, in the bottom of a glass, in somebody's arms. Remember those days, those nights, that time. You were so young, so ready, so in the right place. In this bar, this crowd, on this street, everyone is young. Feel of the summer air on your skin. You could jump right out of that skin. So ready, so sure, so right there, something. It's right there, something. It's gotta happen, something. Brass ring, pot of gold, big adventure, real love, change the world. Grab for it, create it, go after it, choose something, or stay where you are. Make it come to you. Because it must come, it must, but if it doesn't, if you're in the wrong place, thinking the wrong kind of thoughts, you could make the wrong choice. You could miss the mark. What if this It's as good as it gets. Oh, well, you can't stand still, but you can't move forward with no map, no compass, no sense of direction. Can't help but wonder if the future starts tomorrow. Is it drifting on a smoke ring in a book you haven't read? Oh, in the summer, the girls in the dresses, the girls love, and it looks like they're waiting.
Huh. That was really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm assuming you wrote that.
I did. I did.
It was Ken. Were you playing on that?
Yes, I was.
Ken, Chris Davis on piano, Michael Hull on guitar, and Michael T.A. Thompson again on drums. Yeah.
When was that recorded?
That was, let's see, that's on Parallel Lives, which came out in 2011 or 12 on New Artists. I'm not New Artists, sorry. Oh God, Jazz Media.
We're talking about Connie.
Yeah, on Jazz Media.
We don't know why you were worried about that, but that's okay.
It's the wrong label.
It's all right. I'm sure they can handle that. Let's see. Thanks for finding that. Oh, Sandy Cummings. She's a singer in Santa Barbara. She said a little Irene Crawl tone.
Thank you. Love Irene Crawl.
Yeah. So, what's always fascinated me is the East-West Coast development of artists, and, because I'm from Boston, right? And I went to Berkeley and then I came to California. I was going to move to New York and I met my first husband, so I never moved. And so, but one of my dear friends, do you know Jay Azzolino?
By name.
By name, yeah.
By
I don't
name,
remember
yeah.
personally.
His wife was one of my best friends, like from growing up. She was actually a great singer, and she passed a number of years ago. But while so I had this comparison between her and me, kind of what was happening in the development. So I I came up with a little idea, well, this isn't necessarily musically, it was more as a perspective, but I'd like to talk to you about that too. So on the East Coast in New York, it was as if there was a big wheel turning, and the challenge was to jump on the wheel. And on the West Coast, there was no wheel turning, and the challenge was to build it. And I really saw that difference. There were some really particular things that grew out of that. I think musically that there was something in that too, because I mean, out here you have to really look hard to find avant-garde, and free music. Now I'm finding it, but when I was growing up, I think it was a lot more different than New York, when I was in my 20s here.
Huh. Well, I don't know, what were you doing in LA? I mean, for me, I feel like, and that tune of mine that you just heard is a more straight ahead jazz sounding tune, obviously, but, maybe later we can do some stuff from our transformation, which is totally improvised. But I feel like, even though I've been in New York a long time and that's where I started singing jazz, I think I probably sound more like a West Coast person, maybe. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. I'm just saying now, I think, like, I don't know. I've been in New York longer than I lived in California, but I still feel like I've got a lot of California in me, whatever that means. I don't know. I don't know.
These deep questions really make you think, right?
But I think that that idea of the wheel turning, it might be. From my perspective, I might thinking that it might be a singer's thing, in the sense that instrumentalists, and I don't like to say. First of all, I want to say I don't make a distinction between instrumentalists and singers, because I really feel that every instrumentalist, quote, should be a singer, and every singer, quote, should be an instrumentalist, quote. I think that it's about the voice expressing. So that's just another philosophy that to be talked later. But I think that you guys have to, and I tip my hat with all the singers that I've worked with, that you guys have to always be creating something, whether it's West Coast or East Coast.
Yeah.
That's why I think it is, because I didn't have, when I moved from Boston to LA, I just started to go to clubs and then talk to people and then make a session going. And I have to say, every session I went to meet musicians, there was never a singer there, male or female or anything else. There was just no singers there. So that might be what you guys have to deal with, and maybe. That's still my only take. And the only difference is when I got to New York, when I came back to New York, I found in LA it was easier to do sessions in LA.
Oh,
Well, yeah, it was. I was doing sessions 3 or 4 times a week. If I could have done it every day if I wanted to.
wow.
Whereas in New York, I didn't find it as easy to make sessions. I would call people and try to do a session, and they go, "Well, what's the project?" And until I have a project going, there was nothing. So it was more nuts and bolts, projects. So that might be closest to what you're talking about, that wheel. The idea of, no one's going to get involved unless there's a project. And even yesterday, I did a recording yesterday, the first live recording, and what's the first thing out of my mouth when I talked to the guy? Because I had texted him and he never really answered. I said, "Well, so what's the project? What's the concept of the project?" I'm saying this and I'm watching myself saying, "What a schmuck."
Yeah, but that's a different question.
But I had never thought about. I used to say, "Let's play the music." But now I'm thinking about how to approach it. We're going to do free. If we're doing all free, is it going to be 15, 20-minute pieces?
Yeah,
or we're
because
going to
you're asking,
right? But
what is his concept for this?
I never would have asked that in California. We would have just gone and done it. So I think that there is that aspect. Maybe in New York, because everything's so condensed, everyone's trying to every 1 inch of your body space in New York is like 2 square acres in California. So that's my take on your question. And you mentioned that when you were interviewing the drummer. I'm drawing a blank. See, there you go.
Or Joe LaBarbera.
Yeah. I heard you mention a similar question, talking about the concept between East and West.
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely remember that you were into freer music because I still remember going to have a little session with you, and I was so straight compared to you, and I was like, well, yeah, he must be disappointed. I'm just.
I remember. I loved it. No, are you kidding? I don't make it. I don't make a distinction between free or I think everything has to be. Everything is free or it's not free, and it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the clothing is. You're either free or you're not. I remember when we did that session. I felt like you were free as a bird. I loved it.
Oh, see, now you've changed my life. That was a memory that I always had. I was like, oh man, I was not that hip.
Oh no, not.
It's amazing these things we carry with us, right?
Yeah. No, I remember. I remember that session. I remember it clear as day.
It's funny because now I'm much more inclined towards free music and improvisation. And I've had a vocal group for I don't know 7 or 8 years called Fish to Birds, that where we just improvise, out of nothing. We're mostly a cappella. Sometimes we'll have somebody like Brad Dutz, and it's been really fun and very painful to not actually be able to really do it right now. But yeah, And that's really helped me a lot, actually, over the years. It's really opened me up a lot. Um, we have we have forms, but we're free within the forms. You know, we're
Yeah,
all very varied too.
Kind of like,
the
yeah,
aircraft carrier, right?
yeah,
You have a form you commit to.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and yeah, it's great. It's really fun, and yes, and it's also sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and we're all. It's an interesting mix of people, you know, but we do really well together. It's fun.
I think that sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't really applies though to any approach. It really does. I mean, I'm sure we've had the experience of doing a gig, a more straight ahead gig, and you get through a song and you get through, but it's not working.
Yeah.
And maybe, and you just pray that the people listening, maybe they don't notice, maybe they do, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like for me, as I really didn't expect to be writing music. I didn't expect to be getting into free improvisation and more avant-garde stuff. But I feel like everything, just responding to how you said it's really been beneficial to you in general, I feel like everything really works well together in that getting more adventurous in terms of exploring improvisation has really benefited me even when I do tunes, even when I do standards, that going out on those limbs with improvisation, with free improvisation, I've explored improvisation through a few different avenues, and I really think it's about going out on a limb and taking a chance and finding out that you survive, first of all, and that it's really had a very positive impact on just singing tunes. And I think that singing tunes has a positive impact on improvisation because I have a sense of a form and some kind of cohesiveness, which I think is often a positive thing in an improvising situation.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you'd have to be. Well, I won't say this. I won't say it that way. I will say that every moment is a lesson. That's what I'll say.
Yes, that's true.
You want to say something, Ken?
I was going to say I was going to change some words around and remove the idea of improvisation, right? And remove the word free and put inside of that expression. And there, because one of the things I really feel that sometimes musicians doesn't really matter what style, whether it be straight ahead, free, classical, theater. I think you really make a distinction between that which is being expressed and that which is being executed. Are we going to execute ourselves, or are we going to execute something? Because if you execute yourself, it means you're executing expression. But so I think about, like, recently what I've been doing is kind of going back, looking at recordings of jazz recordings from the 40s and 50s and 60s, right? So you can find this stuff where you see these guys playing free inside of a tune. I mean, that's freedom. There's the one recording that I found, and I played it for some of my students, and our students we're all students. I'm learning from them.
Yes,
But this bass player, Arvil Shaw, who played with Louis Armstrong, Louis has him do "How High the Moon," and you can see it on YouTube. And he walks out in front. This is 1950s, like late 50s. He takes the bow as a bass player. He plays the melody, plays the whole thing, takes an extended solo that any avant-gardist bassist would be salivating over. And it's right there on TV. Right? My
Must be
God.
true.
Yeah, it must be true. So there's freedom, or like you were playing, you were doing some stuff, you were getting some stuff. Anita O'Day, or I'm thinking about that famous clip.
Right, the jazz on a summer's day. So I'm teaching
That's-
this class, and I'm getting these clips to show the students.
Now there's a thing, or the other one,
Ella.
Ellis.
Talk about.
Both of those things, as far as I'm concerned, they're free as a bird. That's avant-garde. All avant-garde is being free. It's just allowing yourself to do something, even if it's one note. And I have to say, free, in the avant-garde free playing, there are some people that are just as chained down as anybody else. They're executing the music because they're not listening to what's coming to them.
Yeah, right.
So that's why I wanted to just change up those words a little bit for contemplation.
I remember the first gig that I went to hear that was, so actually another term that sometimes we use is spontaneous improvisation. So the first gig that I went to hear that was completely spontaneously improvised, and I remember there was someone who's, I'm not going to name, they were a pretty well-known person, and I felt like they were just in a different box. They had just taken themselves out of one box and put themselves in a different box, because maybe I took the word free literally as meaning free, everything that we have, everything that we can do as a musician is available to us. So for me, if you want to call it free improvisation or spontaneous improvisation, everything that I have as a vocalist, sounds, words, rhythm, melody, harmony, the absence of those, it's all available to me. And I'm just trying to come from a place of honest expression, and that's it. And then I know people who are totally straight ahead players who are so free. It's so beautiful to hear them, but these categories can get fuzzy and we can get bogged down in the words, but
Yeah. Well, I'm always, and for years I've been like this, but I'm always looking at how the subject actually of, for me, what I've looked at is the subject of making jazz, and vocal technique and life all are the same lesson. Yeah, you learn one lesson one place, and it literally applies to those three spots. In fact, I even wrote a booklet on it, which I was considering during this time of just putting it out. But because, and of course we always talk about this, it always comes up, it floats through, that idea, right? But I see it, well, I see it in teaching, definitely. You see it in your student. Your student is struggling with some kind of a concept, and you can see that actually their life reflects that too. And and the idea of jazz, like what we're talking about, spontaneous, free, expression as opposed to execution, those ideas are, how can we ignore that life needs that, right? And I even have a going relationship with somebody presently who is not really into jazz, not really into improvisation. Improvisation is very vague to them. And in their life, they have a lot of trouble in areas where improvisation would just, not explain it, it would just make it work, if they had a little more awareness about that, So I just love these kind of discussions about that, yeah.
Can I share a story about this exact thing?
no.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
I lived in Boston for a period of time, from about '79 until '81 when I moved to LA. And in Boston, I used to. Did you ever remember Mark Harvey and the Aardvark Orchestra?
Aardvark Orchestra sounds familiar, but not Mark.
Minister, I mean, a trumpet player. He's got a lot of. He's still doing it. We still remain friends, colleagues, so on. So we were doing this one thing for Hiroshima. It was like was a Hiroshima Mio Ma. There's a particular thing that I don't remember again the specifics, but it was a concert in, like, I think it was one of the churches he was a minister at, and it was a concert. It was Mark Harvey, myself, Craig Ellis, a poet and also percussionist, and Peter Bloom, a flutist and alto saxophone player, and I think there were two other people. and there was images in the background of all these horrific images of Hiroshima, and we were just freely improvising, and it was very dark and very abstract. Now my parents didn't really like the music. My mother used to say, "It's the music of the devil," right? they were very religious people, and they would always come to the concerts. They loved when I was doing the straight ahead stuff, but the freer stuff, was, you know. And so in the quietest moment of this concert, it's dark, and I hear, right? I know it's you know your father or your mother snore, right? It's like, okay. So after the concert, you know, I think my mother must have gone, bop, and calmed him down. He came to the concert. He came back, you know, afterwards. He goes, "Oh, I loved it." And I go, "Pop, you know, I heard you snore." I said, "You know, come on, you don't have to say that. You know, don't talk, don't say bullshit, right?" He goes, "No, I was asleep and I was awake." And he said, "I understand now why you like this music. I didn't ask any questions. I just allowed the question to evolve and be itself."
Wow.
I was saying that, and from that point on, he loved the music. And I think that's what when you said improvisation allows that. Sometimes there's a question in life that you can't answer, and you have to just go with it,
Yeah.
or you can wrestle with it and try to keep it and get an answer and man, fit it into that. But you can't fit 5 gallons into a quart container, no matter how much you try.
Yeah.
So therefore, you have to just let it go. So that's from that day on. I remembered that's what improvisation we have to deal with as improvisers, is knowing how to freely express. And even as it's playing tunes, we're improvising. As a bass player and rhythm section, when do you go into a 2-beat? How do you expand that? Or if someone drops a beat, how do you fix that to make it really work as a unit? We all drop. We all have imperfections. So we're improvising on a constant basis. So this story, there it is. We have to allow the question. So he taught me a lot with that interaction.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and all what you just said, you know, about dropping a beat and allowing for imperfection, and I mean, right? Just-
Of course, I've never done
Yeah.
that. No.
Exactly. You know. And I think we've gotten really interestingly trained with Pro Tools and so on to vertically align everything. But sometimes, you know, the size of an integer, sometimes a beat, sometimes is not how unified it is, but how embracing it is.
So,
Not unified, but how embracing it is.
yeah, I love that. You know, I've been people who have watched the show from the beginning have heard me say this, and I don't know how long it's going to take me to finish this book. I have Deepak Chopra, How to Find God, by the side of my bed, and every few days I'll read, you know, like a few pages or a chapter, or anyway, this it's going on forever, but it's a great book, and it's so. I mean, I'm getting so much out of it, but so I'm actually towards the end. And he's talking about how in India, the idea of the soul is not one soul; it's 2 souls. And one soul, I forget they have names of the soul, but one soul's job is to do the work. You know, it's like all our personality, our work, our lives, our families, everything that we do, we are working towards lifetimes to approach enlightenment, right? The other part of the soul, or the other soul, doesn't do anything. It is the essence of God. It's there. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any kind of qualifications, or yeah, it's there. That's you, but it's God. And so as he's going on to describe this, and what I'm getting out of it is it's fantastic, actually. I actually feel the relief of being a human, you know, because I don't have to prove myself this time, and even my foibles can be forgiven and accepted because I'm actually trying. I'm, you know, I'm that soul is working on stuff, right? actively. And when it all fades away, still the other soul is still going to be there, you know. And so what you're talking about too, it touches on that for me. It's it's you were saying that. Sorry, I was trying to remember exactly why I brought that up or why I thought of that, but uh, I'm
What
sorry, my brain is not happening.
was it the beat this way and the
Not
beat
lining
this way, the
up.
embracing the beat?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It made sense. It made sense to go there. And I love what you just said. It's so interesting to me because to me it speaks to that very human thing that I'm sure we all go through this. It's like there's this argument within ourselves, I think, between continually striving to be better and in whatever that looks like for any individual or whatever ways it looks like, and trying to accept oneself as one is. Like, I just feel like there's this, you know, ongoing, like the river that's running under the pavement, you know, and that kind of, to me, that's what that evokes for me, is this ongoing argument in a way. That's all
Yeah.
we.
And it's nice to know that that's all part of the same soul. But there's the other soul that's just there.
Yeah.
You know, it is. It's God. And yeah, I think you're right, Ken, about the embracing. I think that was what it was because it's the soul that's just there is the truth of the beat. It's just the truth. It just is. And the other stuff is the juice, you know, that we're working, right?
Actually, it reminds me of another story. I was when I was living in LA. I was doing this gig with Kim Richmond and John Gross and Billy Mintz, and so a gig down at somewhere in Long Beach. And I bring it up because we were doing Pent Up House, but it, you know. And I had been working. I had been done, and at one point we get into it. It's John and myself and Billy playing trio, and I'm playing, and it felt so wrong, right? I was just like, so I'm thinking about the changes. I'm thinking, because John, do you know John? Did you remember John's playing? John
Yeah,
Gross?
yeah.
Yeah. He was doing this stuff, what I used to call the red notes. And I'm thinking, right? Worst thing to do when you're playing, right? I'm thinking. And at the end, right, when we just plowed through, chorus after chorus. And that was the last of that was the end of that set. And I was just like, oh. And John Gross looked at me and goes, Ken, that was so wrong. It was almost right. That would made me think. Okay, I can never think again. You know, whatever it is, don't think when you play. Don't think when you play. I threw that away because it's the idea. You think when you're practicing, but then to be that which is the full essence, as we're talking about when you play. Dumbass 101. Just don't even think about it. Just do it. Because you can only do what you do at that moment. All your foibles will be with you, and all your graces will be with you.
It's so interesting that it takes us so friggin' long to come to that, right?
Only our whole lives, right?
Yeah.
But you know, it's making me think about that, those moments when you're performing, when you're playing, and you know something happens unexpected, and you know that's not expected, and how exhilarating that can be, right? I mean, when those moments when you're playing and everybody, you know, especially when I think I think probably all jazz musicians have had this experience of, you might be playing with a group you've been with forever, you might be playing with a pickup band, but things just happen and everybody goes there. And you know, and it can be triggered by a mistake, it can be triggered by just something unexpected, but this thing happens and it's just so exhilarating. It actually makes me think of a little story of one time I went to hear this singer that I had met at a gig, and it was a nice gig. She was a very good singer, and it was very nice. But there was a moment where she flub, she forgot a lyric. And in that moment of forgetting a lyric, she was suddenly in her body, fully alive. And that was the favorite moment of the gig for me, because it was the most, I don't want to, it's not that there was anything bad in what she was doing before, it was lovely, but suddenly she came alive. And, you know, I understand that moment of panic that she was feeling. But it was like the most real, exciting moment of the gig for me. She was just, suddenly she went, whoosh, and she was just in herself. And it was exciting.
Yeah, those are the exhilarating moments. I mean, that's why we love going to hear live music too, because it's easier to experience and see it when you're there. You know, there's something that you can cut with a knife, but it's nothing physical. It's what I call the aesthetic universe, and it's there. There it is. When we all get into that room, that magic room, that aesthetic universe, we're all in there, and regardless of its musician or audience member, and it's exciting. It's alive. That's what why we keep doing this, right? To get that again and again and again. We're junkies, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
People, I think what you said is it. It's alive. I think people want to feel alive, fully alive, and we are lucky enough to have those moments, I think, and I'm not saying making music, obviously that's not the only way to do it at all. There are many ways that people experience that, but I think as musicians we get to tap into that all the time, and it's really lucky to have that. I hope we still do, you know.
Yeah, when you think about it, it's especially after these conversations, you know, I've almost tomorrow's the 100th conversation I've had, and you know, this kind of sounds like a duh moment, you know, but I'm really getting how incredible and fortunate, but really how incredible what we have done while we've been alive. You know, we've come in, we've been human beings and done, whatever we've done, family and jobs and blah, blah, blah. But we have actually early on decided that we were creators, and specifically music creators too. And then we made a lifetime of it. We actually gave up stuff to do it. We committed ourselves to it. We used all that commitment and some kind of personal ethics, and we got paid for it. We basically made a living out of it, even if we did do other straight gigs at the same time. And here we are now. We're still creating, and it's almost like maybe also because of what's going on, and because there's so much creativity online that people are sitting around their house and they're tapping into, that maybe we're also or picking up a group think about it as well. Like, what? Wow, wait a minute! I took it for granted that people were musicians or out there, or like some people, like your parents, and a little bit of my family. Although my family was musical, but still, when they realized that I was, going after a career in music, it was like, hmm. We thought it was just going to be like a nice little extra thing for you. So, yeah. So, because I really think that we do as artists pick up on the group think, you know.
Oh yeah, have to.
Probably true. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, also, I can't speak for anybody in this room or anybody that's listening, but for myself, basically, this saved my life. I couldn't really have done anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like once I didn't know what I mean. When I heard the music, when I heard Ornette and I heard Bach, I go, I got to do this. I have to do this. I have to. It's like if I had done anything else, I probably would have been dead, or at least like not physically dead. I may just have been brain dead because I would have been. Yeah. So for me, it's not even a question. It's like I had to. I had no choice. It was like, I mean, I think you could have. There were many options you could have gone to.
She's like, I'm not sure.
Well, your father thought so,
Well,
but I think he's right.
sometimes I wonder.
But the thing is, I think why we all do this, and at some point we make a decision to commit to this because it's the highest peak of what we're put here to do.
Yeah.
That's right.
I guess maybe what Ken is a little bit touching on is a conversation we had this morning, and I sometimes question, and I'm sure I'm not the only one who does this, like, am I making the best use of my time here on earth? Am I contributing anything of value? And yeah, maybe my father was right. And not that my father said, don't be in music, but like, he would say, you could be a great psychologist, or do you want to go to law school? Sometimes now, I wonder if I would be more useful in the world if I had done any of those things.
Well, you know,
I'll never know.
I feel like, well, I feel like and I know you guys do too, we create our own worlds, right? And like I've created you guys, but you've created me too. But you're in my universe, and you reflect a part of me. And you happen to be nice people, but even if you were assholes, you still would be reflecting part of me because I created you in my universe. And so in that way, I think we're all tied in together, or as many as we know, we're tied in together, which is a lot. We know a lot, and when you do something that you feel is value, like your music, for instance, then you are making me better because I'm in your universe. So even that, because I've often looked, and who hasn't looked at people, Mother Teresa, and blah blah blah, lots of amazing people who are doing amazing things, and thought, man, I'm just a jazz singer. You know what I mean? I'm just a jazz singer, and I teach vocal, and that's what I do. But but that's how this kind of scenario that I just described. That's how I can say, good job. You're doing good. You're being good. You're being what you can be, and all the things that I put into motion, the emotions and the more subtle kind of ideas and feelings are having an effect on you guys.
Yeah, thank you for saying all that. That's a really good perspective to have, and I think it's true. And I think there is something of value in the world when people are being true to themselves and trying to be the best that they can be, whatever that is, even just a jazz singer. Yeah, thank you.
Indeed.
Yeah, now you know some of the hidden Cathy Segal-Garcia thoughts. They're not that hidden. I'm not really not. I don't hide too well.
So here's something that was just sitting under this little tray under my desk that I got. The Wisdom of Max Roach. Is this going to be backwards?
Oh, cool. Maybe you'll have to read it.
It says, so I got this from Connie Crothers, from our good friend Connie Crothers, and maybe when she passed and I found it. I can't remember if she gave it to me, if I found it in her apartment and just, it came up with me. Life is a trip. Some of it good, some better, and some of it really, really great. That's what talks 14th, 2002.
That's certainly a glass half full, isn't it?
Maybe more than half full.
It's overflowing.
Carruthers, there's a performance, right?
Yeah, we had a trio. Connie, for those who don't know her, was an improvising pianist and someone who had a lot of impact on a lot of people. Very beloved and admired, and a great musician and extraordinary musician and human being. And the three of us had a trio called Transformation, and we did completely improvised, spontaneously improvised music. And yeah, so we put out a recording.
Okay, I want to hear that, but also I just want to. There are a few comments, and I just want to address them because I've been letting it go by a lot. But I'm just going to read down some of this. Let's see.
Should you put that up?
Joyce Glasgow, who's on the Northwest Coast and a big jazz fan, when everything is about having a project in order to make time to play, it limits the possibilities for musical explorations, creating something exhilarating and new, and fabulously making music for the sheer joy of it. Very well said, Joyce. It was nice. And Yolanda, who's a singer here, she said, watch the documentary with Betty Carter working with younger musicians. That's probably a great one, right?
That I don't know that. Wow.
I don't know that one either, and I love Betty Carter. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to, I don't know, this might be a full discussion. I am probably not the best descriptor of this, but Toby Simmons asked if I could explain what avant-garde is. You use that term a lot. I do. I think those guys are much better to describe this.
I actually think that the term, the actual definition of avant-garde is that it's something that's ahead of what other people are doing, but I think that term has been just sort of stuck on as kind of a general catch-all term for, in the jazz world, let's say, just keep that's a little more on the experimental side. That's really the best I can say in this context. More experimental, or I don't know.
Well, I mean, the word avant-garde means ahead of its time. Now, every time that you're ahead of your time, you can't be ahead of your time. You can only be in your time.
Right.
You have to only look back to know that if you're avant-garde. But by the time you look back, you're already not avant-garde.
But it would suggest that it's
So
something
I'm getting to a
done before.
point.
Yeah, but I'm
So the point
interrupting.
was,
That's
how did they
my
just
point.
like? In other words, when they started getting these musicians who are like taking the form and in the jazz world specifically, expanding upon it. I think that they didn't have a genre to put it in the box when the recordings were being put out. So then they said, "Oh, it's avant-garde." So it just they put it there. But by the time they taped it to the bins in the record store, it's already passed. So what we use it now in the English language, avant-garde meaning anything that's undescribable or that does not fit into jazz, rhythm, blues, classical, country, western, or anything like that. I think that's really what it is. It's an undescribed thing.
Or like free music, or like
Exactly.
Experimental
yeah.
jazz, or you know,
So I
catch-all term.
It's a tricky word. I really hate it, but
Good
we use
question,
it sometimes because it's a handle that's been historically placed right now, but it's inaccurate. Or as a person would said, linguistically sloppy. A poet friend of mine who would, and the more he drank, a great poet, but the more he drank, he goes, "The world is linguistically sloppy." Boston guy.
I love it. Anthony Cucina said he loves the aircraft scenario. Can you unpack that a little?
Well, if you think about being in an aircraft, if you're in 30-foot seas, if you're an aircraft carrier and you're a pilot, or any musician, you have the form, and if it's going like this, 30-foot seas. Now, how am I going to land that? You have to go get it tied in. You have to get in sync with this to be able to land it. So the idea is, rather than counting it out, right? Everybody, you have the melodic line. That I hope this is helpful. And if it's not, we can try it. If you have the melodic line, then you get into that curve of the melodic line until you land, and you know where you land, and everybody can kind of hop on it. makes it a bitch for anybody editing if you're going to edit from one to the other. But that's another story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope that because the circle, in other words, if you have these big spirals like this, okay, if you want to get into something, you have to tune in to get, and you're still spiraling, but it gets smaller.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Did that-
Let's see. Let's see if he says anything else. Oh, Terry Roger is here. She loves the conversation. Hi, Terry. She and John could jump in too, man. Right?
Their bass voice couple.
Exactly.
We were planning to get together to do something with them, and then this whole
yeah, exactly.
That would be great. Hey, are you guys hip to Laurie Ann Tonioli?
Of course.
Yeah.
I watched her. Yeah, and I'm teaching for her. I'm teaching at the. Yeah.
Oh, right. She told me that, of course. Yeah, I mean, we knew each other, but not super well before the conversation. And really didn't know her music that well either. I had heard a few cuts here and there, but I was so intrigued by her body of work and how she sings and her sensibilities and where she's coming from. It was I really enjoyed that.
What else you got on that line on that sequence?
That's it. Except for people saying, love this conversation. This is a great conversation, which I think so too. But let's listen to, okay, so there's three things. Are they videos? Because that would be fun to show.
They're just like photographs. But yeah, maybe. The things you think you see in New York City is the talking one. I don't know.
Up to you.
I guess the things you see in New York City.
Okay, cool.
And then later we have maybe if we have time a duo recording.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We'll have time.
You just never know when you're walking down the street in New York City the kind of things that you're going to run across. You just never know. And if you spend any time in substance in New York City, walking along the various streets of this great city that we live in, you are sure to run into something that catches you completely by surprise. I'm not talking about naked cowboys, no. I'm talking about a man sitting in a garbage can as if it was a lawn chair. I'm talking about the biggest guy you ever saw in your life walking the tiniest dog you ever saw. That's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the kind of things that you wouldn't see anywhere else. If you went anywhere else in the world, if you spent any time with any substance anywhere else in the world, you would not see the things that you see when you're walking on the streets here in New York City. I've heard all kinds of stories. And I've seen all kinds of things and I've been all kinds of places and I've walked farther than I thought I could walk and higher. But I've never seen the things that I thought I would see there. I've seen things that have made my stomach turn. I've seen things that made me laugh. I've seen things that made me cry. I've seen things that I never thought I would ever see in my whole life. And I think the stories that I've heard when I've been there, walking the streets of New York City, everybody's walking around, it's this crazy thing in New York City that you never know. When you're walking, the kinds of things that you're going to run into, which you really can't even begin to imagine. How are you going to react? How are you going to react? What are you going to say when you see the man in the garbage can as if it's his lawn chair? What are you going to think? What are you going to do when you find a $20 bill on the ground? Do you keep it? Do you leave it there? Do you pass it along? Do you try to turn it into the lost and found? There's no lost and found. There's only lost and found. But there's no lost and found. That's a fine distinction. It's calculation, but you never find an actual lost and found. So what do you do if you find $20 bill? I mean, maybe you don't really need it. You just leave it there because someone else who needs it will find it, or maybe someone who doesn't need it will take it, who doesn't need it more than you don't need it. Maybe the person who lost will come back and try to find it. Then what are you going to do? You have their money now. Maybe you should give it to that guy. The guy who's sitting in the garbage can like he's a lawn chair. Maybe you should use it to buy a bus ticket to go somewhere else so you can see what's happening in another part of the world. All I know is you never know what you're going to see when you go walking on the streets of New York City. I can tell you that much. And then the other thing is that you know so many people, this city is so full of people that there are people that you never, ever see. If you looked anywhere else, you would see people that you see. But you're walking on the streets and you see, you walk on the streets and you never see the people that you know. Except once in a while, there will be someone that you would see over and over and over and over and over again. Why is it that person? You go uptown, downtown, Brooklyn, Queens, the Village, the Bronx, and that's the person that you see all the time. Everywhere you go. I've had that experience. There's one person, and you don't even know that person, but you see that person again and again and again and again and again and again and again. It's really something.
Oh my God, that was great. Did you say that she passed away?
Yeah.
2013.
No, 2016.
16? I thought it was 13.
My dad was 2013.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2016.
Wow, I love that. And these are all the same. It's the same group.
I think I'm singing in the other ones. This one I spoke. It's all spontaneous, completely improvised.
I'd like to hear. Can I hear another one? I'm like, would you?
Yeah. Sea Island Sometimes, I think, is a good one. It's long.
Oh, sometimes less than you thought you knew. Sometimes nowhere feels the place you go. Time to find, see everything, everywhere. Sometimes, all time, you don't know, you don't know where to go. Sometimes you walk down the street and you don't know where to go, you don't know where you were, you can't find where you're going, you don't know what you know. Sometimes you can't find the word, the place, time, the thing that you're looking for. Sometimes you find it there where you didn't even know you were. It's there, around, you turn around and there you find your sometimes. comes from way down deep inside you, way down deep inside you. Don't know, can't find. You don't know what you know. You don't see the thing that you would see. And for it comes to from somewhere far, somewhere the wind is blowing your words away. I saw the place where words will go away. I know. She what he wants to say. Hey, say what you want to say. She told me that she wanted to find, to say the word before the light you wanted passes by and goes away. I don't even know. She said so. Where the wind sometimes no, there's a place to go. There's a place to go. It's the place to go. Nowhere, that's the way.
Oh, that is so cool. I'm in love with that group.
Thank you.
A lot of people are digging this, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you, people. It was interesting to hear it, after so long. It's like, wait, what did I say? And then we were looking at the pictures because those, we took all those pictures. So we were looking, oh yeah, that was this place and that was that place.
Yeah, that was the photos were beautiful. Actually, my friend said the pictures are a cornucopia of awesomicity. Yes, my word.
Cool.
Thanks, Roland. Yeah, that was just so great.
Thank you so much. Wow. Mm.
Joyce is asking if you ever played with Perry Robinson.
I've listened to Perry Robinson. Have you played with Perry? You have, right? Yeah,
Yes,
I love Perry Robinson.
we was in a group with Lou Grassi, if I remember, Lou Grassi, Perry, myself, and Mark Whitecage. It was a newly forming group before about a year and a half. It started before Perry passed away. And actually, we had done a live recording on from Vision Fest, which was I think the last time we played before Perry passed away, and we were kind of contemplating whether to release it, but the sound quality from the board what they had gotten was not possible. We couldn't get a good balance. We couldn't really mix it because the guys that at that particular time who was doing it, they screwed up some feed on the bass sound and the drum sound, so it wasn't. But Perry, man, what a celestial being.
Wow.
Whew. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, the what struck me too is something that well, okay, so it's your intonation, and Andrea, Andrea. It's Andrea, isn't it?
Andrea. Doesn't matter.
Took me years to understand. Took me years to believe.
Okay, Andrea. It's kind of like Cathy. We're at the beginning of the alphabet. We have those names like that they made popular in the 50s or whatever. And Bobby, stuff like that. Anyway, Ken was kind of cool, man. That name was like, what was it, Kenneth or something?
If I'm in trouble with Kenneth, it used to be Kenny among my family and friends, but I put a stop to that. I'm definitely not. I mean, there's Kenny Wessel, there's Kenny Barron, right? There are things that are definitely Kennys. I'm not a Kenny. It's either Ken, Although every once in a while, some people will sneak in a Kenny. My mother, until she passed away, and my dad and my sisters, they still call me Kenny. That's part of it. But it's Ken. It's kind of what it is.
Yeah, it's family stuff anyway.
Yeah.
So, Andrea, that really jumped out at me. Your intonation is so great, and you're singing those tension relationships, and that's something that when I teach people, especially like my scat classes, I always start, much to their dismay, with I put my hand on any chord on the piano, and then I make them, finding out if they actually understand what a chromatic scale is. I make them sing chromatic scales, but holding each note for, a nice amount of time. So, and loving it and being really in tune so they can actually feel the relationship. And I always say, love that tension, whatever, love it, just get into it. And because, it's like, that's really, when you see singers and they're especially trying to scat, but even in singing the song itself, you see them like wince, or they're hurt by their mistake. It's so it works great. It's really a nice tool, but that was a real beautiful example of that. Your intonation is so good, and the creations of the intervals, that every it just felt right. Everybody, there was one point, Ken, when you came in, I knew you were coming in. I knew you were going to come in there. It was the perfect entrance for you, and you did. It was that was really a beautiful listening experience, and she plays so beautifully.
Trio had, I mean, she was amazing. So I would really, if you don't, for anybody who doesn't really know her music, I would just check her out, Connie Crothers. And she played with a lot of people, and a lot of wonderful groups. But the three of us, and I don't know, there was just this thing that would happen. Everything was the tracks. The CD was from 2 live concerts. It was just like I would really kind of go into a trance with this group. It would just boom, every time we play. It was just, there was something about this particular formation of these 3 people. It'd be like just into this place. It was amazing. It was really amazing.
And you have anything to say about this trio?
She wrapped it up good. I mean, I also played with Connie. We had a duo together that actually, before we were working on, we were going to record the duo before she passed. And even the week before she passed, I figured out how to put her in the car. She could lay down in the car, and we can go to Cape Cod to record. But then she went into the hospital. So we had that. I played in her trio, in another trio, and a quartet and a quintet. I'm going to draw the blank of the names just because of my mind. Roger
Mancuso.
Roger Mancuso on drums, and
Richard
Tabnick. And then on the quintet was
Roy Campbell.
Roy Campbell. Man, it's like it was a celestial quintet. So I had a lot of experience with Connie, just as a piano-bass relationship. And this was, and actually Andrea introduced me to Connie because I was too shy to even contact her.
Well, but back to what he was saying about doing sessions, the thing is that there was this community of people.
She had a community, yes.
Everybody, and a lot of those people, still connected and play together. And so it was like this happened to be a trio, but also, Connie and I would play together, or other people in this wide, beautiful group of musicians would get together and do sessions or gigs. Just it was really an undulating, it still is, kind of organism of love and music.
And I think part of it is because it wasn't project oriented only. Everybody did do projects, but it was also like when we would get together, the trio, or me and Connie with the duo, whatever. There was, you did a stretch, and the stretch could be tunes. I mean, we played tunes in this group. We didn't play tunes, but other stuff we played tunes, regular standards, and then we do a stretch of 1 or 3,
Not
2
regular,
or 3
though.
of the stuff. Then she would make coffee, or we'd sit about the table, drink, and kibitz about all kinds of stuff, right? Politics or something. So it was wrapped around life. It wasn't just okay, so what are we going to do? How are we going to get this grant? What are we going to do? Blah, blah. It wasn't about that. It was about that when the project was manifesting. But it was a life thing. And it always reminded me of California, because in California when I was there, and also in Boston, the hang was part of it.
And
the
where
music,
was Connie from originally?
California.
Redwood City, California.
Yeah.
She'd been in New York for a very, very long time, but anyway, it was a beautiful scene.
Also, I think one of the other things, at least I can't speak for you, but in this trio, the spontaneous thing, and would drive Connie crazy whenever I would mention this to her. In a good way. Because I would always say to Connie, I said, you play jazz piano, but you were, a composer. But she wanted to be a composer before she got into her improvised jazz. She wanted to be a composer. And so sometimes I would say she'd be doing some harmony. I said, you know, you just write out of Ruggles. Like that harmony would be Ruggles, you know, 3 pieces for New England, right? And she would look at me. It's jazz. I said, Kai, you can't deny it. So I think what brings it about is that she's thinking, and as I'm thinking is the wrong word. Aware, bringing that awareness to the thing about arranging, about shape, about. So like when you make a mention about me coming in at the right time, you know, it's a blessing first, but I'm always listening. I'm being aware. I'm silent. When I don't go in because I'm thinking it. I go in because the music. That's what the music requires. So you're becoming. So Connie and I were always thinking about that, especially the idea of surrounding a voice. Because look, the truth is, and I say this with much love and deep respect, you guys are the most vulnerable. You got no mechanisms to pull. You've got to grab this. You have to be the highest magicians to grab the stuff out of thin air. And I've said that to some of my singer friends, and they say, "No, I know how it feels in my throat." Blah 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 blah. Yeah. But truth be told, I know that if I need to play a D, I can go right there. And if I'm out of tune, I know that if my hearing is completely fakak, I'm going to get a D out of there somewhere. I can get it. So I'm always tipping my hat to you guys, and all you singers out there. I tip my hat in high respect. So Connie and I were the idea of surrounding the voice so that wherever, in this case, she could go, it was that she had a not only a landing place but a place to bounce off of, to go to. So I think that is also what makes that trio special.
Wow.
You know, and Connie would be able to, if you're in this, Connie would always know the right notes to play to surround what you're playing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Although I just want to add that it wasn't a vocal group. I mean, it
wasn't a vocal group. No.
A trio of 3 equal instruments. That's how we.
No, 3 equals. I'm only saying this in the sense of that as instrumentalists, we both were aware that we have mechanics, but that we're surrounding in the voice in that specific way.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
As a babysitter, not as a babysitter.
No.
Okay, so there's a difference. There is a difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she would have had to be a much less singer too for you even to babysit her anyway. Ken, I was reading about you on Wikipedia, and
Probably 10 years out of date, but go.
I know. I was thinking this is probably out of date. There it said you've recorded on over 70 albums, but I'm sure
Probably, maybe more now. There's a whole slew. There's a whole slew of stuff that I haven't put in my CV yet. Yeah, I've been involved in a lot of different projects, which has been good.
yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, that's not everybody is like that, you know.
I think it's because of the fact that I'm always poking my finger in areas, getting involved, and then all of a sudden people say, oh, let's record, you know, and then I'm only starting to do that on occasion with myself now. So I
Are
have
you
more.
from New York, Ken?
What's that?
You're from New York?
Yes, I am.
Long Island.
Long Island, and my family's from Brooklyn via Italy.
Okay. Yeah, I can feel some of that coming through there.
Yeah, I do feel it.
Yeah, you must have liked being in Boston.
I did, but I knew it wasn't a place for me to settle. You know, for me, I felt, but I love the city, and I love going. I still have good friends there, and I still go back and visit. But I was actually from Boston, thinking about moving to New York. Right, that was my trajectory. When my first wife, I don't know, did you ever meet Irene when we were in California? Yeah. She was at UCLA, and so she had gotten a full scholarship to UCLA to do graduate work with Joanna Harris, the pianist, and so she was moving there, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I got to move. But I so didn't want to go west of the Hudson River at that time that I didn't start packing until 2 days before I moved. And she said, I'm moving with or without you. She's ready to go. And then I had to pack it, all that stuff. And I fell in love with Boston. I have to say, I fell in love with LA. I fell in love with it. Yeah. It's in a good way. And I felt, all of a sudden, I felt like, wow. I was always uncomfortable with this 1 inch one square inch space. So someone's like got across the. Wow. Yeah, I can live here. And I did.
Yeah, I actually still feel like I'm from Boston. When people ask me where I'm from, I hesitate always. I mean, of course, I've lived here for, more years than I lived in Boston, but because I moved here when I was 21. But when I go back to Boston, I'm totally, totally there, and I actually I actually feel like I'm in college when I go back. I get all these college memories, which is dangerous.
Where did you live in Boston, if I may ask?
Where was I from, or where did I live when in college?
Either both. Where were you from?
I'm from Newton,
Oh,
but
New.
yeah, but I was from Oak Hill Park, which was this tiny little corner of Newton, with one side on Dedham and one side on Needham, and the Charles River was like ran right by it, and it was built for the army, the guys coming out of the service. Very small little area, one story little houses, and um, yeah, so that's where I grew up. And then uh, I guess I lived in various spots in Boston, Cambridge probably being the longest one. I lived in Brighton, Cambridge, and when I was in school at Berkeley, I think I was living in Cambridge.
Yeah, a lot of music was going on around there, Cambridge. Yeah.
That was because I was there, so I was at Berkeley 72 to 75, like halfway through 75. And that I always say that the music that was going on at the time, especially around Boston, it was everything. It was an embarrassment of riches. We had great blues. We were listening to Miles, like what he was doing, like the cool into the modern. We were ECM had kind of just come up. Motown was still in full bloom, and Woodstock had happened not too much earlier, and I mean it was endless, on and on and on.
Yeah, I remember at that time I was living in Syracuse, and I had some friends in Boston who had moved from Syracuse to Boston. So we would drive back and forth between Syracuse and Boston just to hear the music that was in Boston.
Really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I used to hear. Yeah, it was just amazing. It was, and that's the idea when I graduated from Syracuse. The idea was just my wife and I moved right to the Boston area.
Ah,
Yeah.
cool. Yeah, really, really fun. We're actually coming towards the end, and you wanted to play something, right?
Oh, well, just because we have one released recorded duo track, I thought that might be a nice thing to.
Where is it? Is it on the SoundCloud? Or?
SoundCloud, it's called Rendezvous in Providence. And it's a poem by Dennis Nurksey that I composed this music for. Now, Cathy, tomorrow I know you are the special guest. And Ken's mom passed away at the end of March, and we actually have to go out to the house tomorrow and, do some of those things you have to do. So I don't know that we can join you tomorrow, I'm sorry to say, but I have a question for you, which is who's in that picture behind you of the two little girls? Is that you?
No, those are my twin sisters, and they were 4 years.
Uh-oh, she froze.
Uh
Uh-oh.
oh.
And
You just froze.
You
So
froze for a sec. I think you're saying they were 4 years old?
yeah, no, they were 4 years older than me,
Okay.
and yeah, they were really beautiful. Here's one
wow.
Mm.
really beautiful women, inside and out, and unfortunately, I lost both of them.
Oh my
Oh
God.
man.
This one, the one I just showed you, she died when she was 48, which was just about over 20 years ago. And then my other sister Edie died about 10 or 11 years ago from pancreatic cancer. So it was it was rough for a long time for both of them. When Margie went, We had a really difficult time, and we couldn't even get around the piano because it just, we totally lose it. And then because we grew up doing that, and then when as the years went on, and then when Edie got sick, it was like, you are kidding, that is. And my mom was alive at the time, so she had to see both my sisters pass. And but I feel like they're here, although I really miss, of course, the actual physicality.
Of course.
Tell you the truth, I have conversations with them still, and every time I feel kind of sad about them, I think, oh, they're here, because they're here, and if I don't realize that, I'm just reminded of them, and I miss them. So I start talking to them. I've had long, long conversations, like 20-minute conversations. Oh, here's another picture at my desk that I like to keep.
So beautiful.
So yeah, but they were so friggin' cute when they were little. Oh my God, I have the greatest pictures of them. They looked a lot alike. So, yeah, and there's actually a recording on a duo record that I made with Ross Tompkins. Um, that was shortly after Margie died. So I happened to have on tape a recording of the three of us getting together after I had been living here a number of years, and we sang. We had certain little fun things that we did. We had a version of "Good Night, Sweetheart," and so it was on tape. So I put that on the record, and then I also sang it with Ross, and it was definitely an emotional recording, but it was great. And I'm actually on one of my last recordings. I'll send it to you on Dreamsville with Larry Koontz and Josh Nelson. There was a song that I wrote 2 or 3 years ago called "The Three of Us" that just came to me as I was gardening, and yeah, it was about us, and really poignant song. So I'll send that to you.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you for telling me about tomorrow. I wish you could be there, but I'm sorry, Ken, for your mom.
Thank
Um,
you.
and maybe you'll have some conversations with her too.
I'm sure everybody had some. We've already done the dreaming.
Cool, cool. Um, and let's listen. I want to come back and say a proper goodbye. And it's Rendezvous in Providence, right? Okay, here we go.
Perhaps the gods are like us, a couple breathless on a narrow bed. They speak in low voices, fly across the ceiling. The self they lost comes back on the breeze from a rickety fan. A clock strikes, one touches the other gently
on the wrist. As they undressed each other, now they dress themselves in deep silence, and leave us alone with this clock and mirror, this love, this fear, these white hairs tangled in a single comb.
Cool.
Thank you.
And that was improvised?
No, it was a poem, Rendezvous in Providence, by Dennis Nurksey, that I set to music. So there was the improvisation in the center of it, but everything else was written.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, thank you guys. What a fun time. I knew it was going to be fun. I was really looking forward to this today. Thanks. I'm honored that you spent 2 hours with me and with us, and it was just it was a beautiful hang.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
and everyone who's been listening, thank you so much. It's really lovely.
Um, I just want to say, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you just a few of the people that are coming up, which you can always find it on my website. But um, Cathy Segal-Garcia tomorrow, because it's my 100th day, and Kathy Cousins just pushed me towards it. She said, "You have to interview yourself."
Great. Right. She's
Thank
right.
Kathy Cousins.
Yeah, and then Lester Merle, and
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know a wonderful singer, a dear friend of mine, Calabria Foti.
No.
She's a She's got seriously a gorgeous voice, and she's a violinist. And her husband is Bob McChesney, who's a great trombone player. Like her last record, check it out sometime. It's just gorgeous. She has arrangements by Bob and Johnny Mandel and Roger Kellaway, and she's got this yummy voice. It's great. So, and then a drummer from Chicago, Jack Mouse, who's married to Janice Borla.
Yeah.
Oh,
Sunday, going to have John DeVersa. I'm looking forward to that. And Monday, I'm having a friend of mine he's a soul singer, John Finley. And do you guys remember a group called Rhinoceros?
Yeah.
He was the singer.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
That's like, wow.
I know. This was like 70s, right? Something like that. Yeah, man. And he's such a great singer. And in fact, he just came out with a new record. He's a great singer, and he's a lovely person.
Actually, yeah, I have to check that out.
And then Iona Morris, probably you guys don't know her, but she's an actress. I met her through singing years ago, but she's an actress. And Judy Rafat, I don't know if you know her, she's from Germany, and I was on her show. She's a singer, and she spent some good amount of time with Dizzy Gillespie, as a friend and under his wing. Randy Crenshaw, studio singer, Bobby Shue, of course we know. And I know the next Sunday after this Sunday, Vinnie Goliath.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that'll be another fun one. So,
I've had COVID cocktails a few times.
Yeah.
really? That's great. Well, yeah, I want to have COVID cocktails with you guys because this was so much fun.
Do it.
Do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. And yeah, I just want to put out there that these two guys teach online, and so if you're interested in what you experienced and heard today, I would contact them.
Just want to say, because we didn't get a chance, because Ken has this gorgeous solo bass CD. I just want to mention it. People want to check it out. It's called Subvenire, Subvenire, and it's really stunning solo bass. So
Some of it's on SoundCloud.
Okay.
Okay.
I just put it on SoundCloud now.
His SoundCloud, right?
I just started this morning, so I'm just coming up.
Okay, now down the rabbit hole, man.
He has a website coming.
I have a website coming. Yeah. I felt so good when Joe LaBarber was saying didn't have a website. I said, yeah, I can get with that. I can get with that.
One of his students is making him have a website.
Yeah.
Finally, I couldn't do it.
I don't want to call him a student. He's a colleague, a young colleague. Yeah. So.
But yeah, yeah, I know. So it takes however long it takes. I know a lot of people in that position. But now it's a good time to work on stuff like that.
Well, it terrifies me because I'm looking. To do this, I have to look backwards, and I always think about Satchel Paige. I don't know if anybody remembers Satchel Paige, the pitcher.
Oh, okay.
He was like one of the oldest pitchers, and he was pitching into his 50s, and I think even into his 60s.
Wow.
Someone interviewed him and says, "Satchel, how do you keep on going? You're getting older, and you keep on moving. You're like a young." He goes, "I don't look back. If you look back, the past will catch you and bite you in the ass." Or something to that thing. So I've always, when I heard that, I said, "Oh, I can never look back." Put a website together, even to put SoundCloud together, has made me look back, and it's not as terrifying as I thought it was being in my mind.
Yeah, yeah. It's okay. You can do it.
Yeah.
It is.
I'm terrified to think about looking backwards. Will I sound like? Did I sound like shit? Why would anybody want to play with me? All that ego shit. Oh, we have to go through it.
That's not true because you had, and also that phenomena that happens. Like I was on the road with Phil, for years, and sometimes one night, we'd play a gig and they'd play our record, our new record. And we'd go, wow, man, that sounds really good. It was always the same few songs we heard, right? And then the next night they'd or even the next set, they'd put it on again and we'd go, God, that sucks. Then the next day would be like, no, that sounds pretty good, and then the next day, no, that sucks, So
The roller coaster of the judgmental mind.
yeah. So anyway.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing about, creating a new website. Content is, for me, it was the hardest thing to come up with, but you are living with a really good writer. And so she's going to make sure the content sounds good. So you just have to come up with the pieces, and then I'm sure she's going to go, let me look at that,
Well, I think I'm trying to keep her out of it because I really kind of feel like I'm putting like my thing here. I feel like she has enough work to do for herself. No reason to be babysitting my sorry ass. So I'm going to find somebody else but then she can proofread it. Because I think that sometimes in an artistic or even just a humanistic relationship, one or the other will kind of babysit the other person. I think it has to be. The babysitting will happen naturally, but if you can consciously not have it, put it somewhere else. I think that's respectful to the spouse, to the companion. That's how I look at it.
You gotta love him. You gotta love this guy.
I don't know, but I think I'm like a fireworks package going on most of the time, But that's the closest I can get to being conscious of this shit.
You're very sweet. Well, you guys have a great evening, and thanks again for being on. It was really fun, and this goes on YouTube on my channel. You can, find it there, and also on Facebook. And I also have archives, so you'll be in the archives as well.
So much for
thank you.
doing this in general and for inviting us to be part of it. Really, thank you.
A warrior, a gladiator. You.
Uh-oh. I think she froze again. Okay, you froze a second again, but okay.
Okay, I'm alive. All right.
All right.